of live streaming of the webinar in the WhatsApp group. The link will be shared in the chat box as well. Further, if you have any question for our speaker, please feel free to ask it by sending it in the chat box. We will be answering questions at the end of the session, and if we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we will be sure to follow it afterwards.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Principal sir.
Good afternoon, Principal sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Welcome,
everybody.
Principal sir.
I think we still have some
Without any
time.
further
Let's wait.
yeah.
Nice,
I would
very
like
everybody.
to,
Good afternoon.
I would request Dr. Rajesh Kiri, Principal Sir of our college, to say a few words. Principal Sir, over to you.
We still have some time. Let's wait for a few minutes.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
After 2 minutes, we will start, no?
Logging in.
Yes. Okay.
Now, limit is over in the Google Meet. It's 100.
Acha, it's over then. Okay.
Yes. So everybody will join on the YouTube link.
We should start at 4 o'clock.
Yes, sir. Bilkul.
Okay. Principal Sir, will you please address the audience, please? At least say a few words to our audience.
Thank you, Prerna. So, hello, everybody. So, on behalf of in charge NSS and convener Chemophilic Society Rajdhani College, and my own behalf, I extend my warm welcome to Professor Bakhshi, a renowned academician and a very, very popular teacher, for accepting our invitation for this webinar on New Education Policy 2020 and Higher Education, a Teacher Perspective. I also thank my colleagues, Dr. Rajni, Dr. Sharmila, and other colleagues, and my very dear students for organizing this webinar. Friends, we know that the main aim of new education policy is to make India a global knowledge superpower. And although we are going to listen to renowned Professor Bakhshi, and if I recall, I have already attended a program where Professor Bakhshi was the chief guest. Just to say a few things, that in new education policy, we can divide this in terms of school education, where the pattern has been changed from 10 plus 2 plus 3 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. And the one attraction in the school education, new education policy 2020 is teaching up to fifth standard, at least in our mother tongue. This is really a very attractive point made in our new education policy. In higher education, I would just mention that the multidisciplinary institutions concept is going to be very, very, helpful in future. And in higher education also, the creation of an academic bank of credit, it's ABC, is again a very, important thing. So before I conclude, I'm just worried after attending a number of programs, what will be the implementation of new education policy. I think Professor Bakhshi will unlock so many things regarding our queries, our worries about new education policy. Sir, once again, thanks a lot for accepting our request, and I congratulate to the entire team for organizing this webinar. Thank you so much, sir.
Prerna, your microphone is on mute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Principal, sir, for your enlightening words. I would like to request Dr. Rashmi Grover ma'am to
your words. Sir, please.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Bakhshi, sir.
Thank you very much, Rajni. I won't be very formal and won't call you Dr. Rajni because I think you have been my student, so I will be more comfortable in calling you as
Sir,
Rajni.
you are a
I
great
hope
teacher.
comfortable.
Thank you so
Then
much. Thank you.
Prerna also and Sharmila also and esteemed principal of the college, Dr. Rajesh Giri, and faculty members of the college, and last but not the least, participants from all over the country who are there today attending this webinar which is being organized by NSS and Camphilic Society of Rajdhani College. It's indeed a great honor and privilege to be a part of this event. And I thank Dr. Giri for extending this invitation to me. As a matter of fact, when I was approached for this talk, there were many options. I am basically a chemist and have always been teaching and delivering lectures mainly on chemistry. But then we have decided this time to choose the topic of national education policy in the context of higher education, and that also from a teacher's perspective. I understand most of the participants are the teachers. So they would like to know what does this policy contain and what are going to be the challenges ahead in the light of this national education policy. So starting my talk, let me share my screen first. Please may I request you to please confirm if I am audible and my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible and you are audible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See, when I was going through this national education policy document, as a person who has been in education for a very, very long time, I have been associated with school education, then college, then university administration, and that also both in India and abroad. I was just trying to look from that perspective, this education policy. And therefore, today I will share with you some of my thoughts on this document. But before I start, since everything is about education, let me tell you what I think why education is so important. And education, you will all agree, is the most powerful weapon to change the world. So therein lies the strength of education. And then we should not forget that our greatest natural resource is the minds of our young children. A child without education is like a bird without wings. So education, in a way, provides wings to each and every child. And also, as teacher, I feel, and I am sure you will agree, that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And also, children must be taught how to think and not what to think. It is said, if I give you fish, you eat one day. If I tell you how to fish, you eat throughout your life. So that should be the purpose of education. And also, the goal of education is understanding, whereas the goal of training is performance. We are educating. In a circus, a lion is trained so that the lion can perform. Lion is not educated. So we have to understand the difference between the two. And please remember, education is what remains after one has forgotten everything one learned in school. It's the training of the mind which ultimately will matter in life. You may forget anything you have learned, but then how your mind is developed, how you think, how logical you are in your approach, that will be reflected in your education. And somebody very rightly said, education is simply the soul of a society as it passes from one generation to another. And through education, ultimately one also hopes to get some good jobs. And this is some fact which we cannot afford to ignore. And please remember the Future of the Jobs report, which was published in 2019 by the World Economic Forum. This report says that 65% of the children entering primary school right now, that means in 2019, will be working in jobs that don't even exist right now. So education has to plan things in such a way. And there have been many concerns about our education. And one I can recall of Bill Gates, who said that my biggest disappointment when it comes to India is the education system. So, with all this background, with all these expectations, which we have from an education policy, let us try to look at this new education policy. So I now come to the National Education Policy 2020. It's a vast document, but still I will touch most of the things. First thing which you have to remember is that it is the first education policy of the 21st century. It is a vision document which expresses the aspirations of the nation. Vision is what you are able to see, what is still invisible to others. Vision is what you see with mind. Sight is what you see with your eyes. And as Dr. Giri was also pointing out, this policy aims at making India a global knowledge superpower. Knowledge superpower means we should be superpower not only in knowledge dissemination, but also in knowledge creation. Both things are very important. And according to this policy, pillars of education are quality of education, access, equity, accountability, and affordability. These are the 5 main pillars of education. Here we are talking about equity, not equality. Please see here the difference between equality and equity. Equity means you have to be fair. Just as in this picture, we can see being fair to the youngest one. So how it can be done. Then, when this new education policy draft came, this draft was of about 484 pages. After getting the draft from the committee, which was led by Dr. Kasturi Rangan, he is a very world-renowned scientist. Then they invited suggestions on that draft. And more than 2 lakh suggestions were obtained. Then changes were made and the final document of national education policy is about 66 pages. And as I said, it is the vision. See, every institution, maybe even your college has vision and mission. After vision, you have the mission. Then you have the strategies, then goals, and ultimately objectives which you achieve, which are enshrined in that vision. So that is how the roadmap is to be prepared, but it is not yet prepared. One should keep it in mind that this policy will be implemented in a phased manner. Non-fiscal reforms will be implemented first, followed by fiscal reforms. In many cases, even pilot projects will be run to see how the things work out. And then, in some very sensitive issues, parliamentary approval will also be taken as and when required. So there are many things. And now, as you know perhaps, the name of MHRD has been changed to Ministry of Education. So this is another development. One may ask a question, why this policy is coming after 34 years? Please remember, it is the third major revamp in the framework of education in India since independence. First policy came in 1968, then in 1986. Why 34 years? Because in order to understand the impact of an education policy, it takes a lot of time. If you really want to see how education policy is, if a child is admitted in nursery today and he or she goes up to suppose PhD, it may take about 25, 27 or more or less years. Then you will really see that whether, whatsoever were the expectations, they have been met or not, or how has been the policy. Therefore, it's not surprising that these policies are free and, as a matter of fact, compulsory education to all children aged 6 to 14. So this is a big thing, Right to Education Act. And all these things, Article 21A, which says education is the fundamental right, and Right to Education Act came into effect on 1st April 2010. So, because constitutional provisions become very important while implementing any policy. You can't, contradict them. Then, when I was going through this, I personally feel that national education is so important that it needs to be treated at par with national security. It should be given that much importance as we give to the national security. Because, the purpose of education is ultimately to empower the students for their all-round development through knowledge, skills, values, etc. Knowledge we have been imparting, skills we have been, training them for so many things. I mean, both soft skills and hard skills are very important. And then values. And in many countries, 3 things are taught to a child from very beginning. One is human values, which are universal. Second is nationalism, taking pride in your own country. And the third is communication and presentation skills. So all that is required. So, the purpose of education is to prepare youngsters who are future ready, who are able to meet the challenges of the future. So there should not be any scope in the national education policy. And it is said that the hallmark of any education system is that it should change with the changing times. That means it should be futuristic. So we will see that also. I'm just reminded of one thing. This is written at the entrance gate of a university in South Africa. What's written? Destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires lowering the quality of education and allowing cheating in the examination. That's enough to destroy the country. Patients will die at the hands of such doctors who will come out of that system. Buildings will collapse at the hands of such engineers. Money will be lost at the hands of such economists. Justice will be lost at the hands of such judges. Why it is written? It is for contemplation. That think how important is the quality of education. Because the collapse of education is the collapse of the nation. And we are privileged that we are in this profession. So we should take our responsibility very seriously. One very important aspect of this national education policy is access, making it available to the masses. And in the context of higher education, it proposes to raise gross enrollment ratio up to 50% by 2035. Current gross enrollment ratio is 26.3. And you can see here from this table, in 2001-2, it was just 8.1. 2007-8, it was 13.1. Then it is currently about 26.3, and now we aim to have it to 50%. Gross enrollment ratio means the percentage of the youth in the age group of 18 to 23 who are able to judge. You cannot keep on opening more universities. You need staff, you need competent faculty, you need infrastructure, buildings, etc. So it will be done mainly through online education. So please remember, online education is going to play a very important role in the years to come. MOOCs are especially going to play a very important role. You all know massive open online courses, which for the last few years are being developed in the country for the various courses. And they are hosted on this SWIME platform. According to the current reports, more than 2,000 MOOCs have been uploaded on the SWIME portal. And our center at SGTB Khalsa College, we have already developed nearly 50 MOOCs, the maximum in the country by any single institution. And the vision of the government is SWIME will be like ATL, anytime learning for MOOCs, just as we have ATM for money. And one thing you should all know, because you will have to use it. SWIME is designed to achieve the three cardinal principles of education policy, namely access, equity, and quality. All the three will be achieved. And the basic philosophy of MOOCs is 4 A's. Anytime, anywhere, anyone, any number of times. This is unique. You cannot ask your teacher again and again that you repeat the whole lecture, but here you want to listen to the lecture as many times you can do. You can decide your own pace of learning. And then these are highly economical. And when I said 3 cardinal principles, it is like this. MOOCs have been developed by the best persons, best professors of the country. So it is something like the best of the country addressing the rest. And then, these can help in realizing the dream of lifelong learning. For example, if I want to learn something about economics, I cannot take admission in a university. I can learn from the MOOCs. The same with you. So it's going to be a boon for lifelong learners. And the biggest thing is high quality education will be available to the masses. Equity comes that way. Anybody can enroll. Fair, everybody. No question of taking admission or something like that. There are many MOOCs in the world where there are lakhs and lakhs of enrollments. So this is going to be the future. And then at school level also, this policy says we should have 100% gross enrollment ratio. Even if there are some dropouts, they should be brought back. Earlier I showed you Right to Education Act, where it says free and compulsory education up to 14 years. Now it is talking about 18 years. So maybe very soon the government will amend Right to Education Act. And so that education is free and compulsory up to the age of 18 years. 18 years means school education entire will be covered. So it's very good that on availability front, all this is happening. Because, as I said in my first slide, education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. So this is how we are achieving it. Curriculum-wise, this policy says curriculum is like the menu which we offer to the students. Earlier, our syllabi used to be very high, but now it is talking about light syllabi. Only core essentials will be included. But biggest challenge in this will be what to include and what to exclude, because there is so much in every discipline. And therefore, we should have core essential, but we should also have the modern syllabi. I remember I wrote NCERT chemistry and in chemistry there were about 30 chapters, 11, 12 taken together. So much chemistry, as if chemistry is going to end after that. You can't do justice with so many. Students can't learn. And they not only have to learn chemistry, they have to learn other subjects also. But one thing you have to put in mind, knowledge is growing very, very fast. I'm a member of the national committee which has been recently set up by NCERT, where we are developing all that, how it will be done. Knowledge is growing in all disciplines very fast. Doubling time of knowledge has shrunk. There was a time when doubling time of knowledge was 150 years. Then it became 50, then 5, and at present, it is about 73 days. So you can win. Another challenge and another important aspect in this education policy, which I liked, is that the focus of education will be shifted from rote learning to creative thinking, problem-solving skills, digital literacy, inquiry-based learning, experiential learning, and creativity and innovation. I think this is the biggest thing if we are able to achieve it. But there is no roadmap in the policy as to how it will be done. How it will be done. It is good that we are emphasizing on the development of the creative potential of each individual. But how it will be done? Nobody prevented us from doing all this earlier also. So how will we be able to achieve this? This is a big question mark. Still, we are in a race and children are in a race for getting 90 plus, 95% plus marks. I don't say that doesn't mean that they are not bright, but it may not be always true. And it has become a big pressure on the students, on the children. A student's mark sheet has become a press for the family. What have you learned? Only everybody will ask how much percentage, what is your rank? That is, they are giving more. Unfortunate. Please remember, students may be 20% of our population, but then they are 100% of our future. We need to spend time on them. We have to make them really, for doing a human service for the country for the future. So my biggest concern in this education policy is nothing is being mentioned about existing teachers in higher education and school education. At micro level, if you want to achieve anything, a lot of teachers till date, they had been National Education Policy of 1986. But suddenly now, NEP 2020 has come, so they have different, goals, different objectives, and how they will be trained for that. Professional development of teachers is not mentioned. And this is, in my opinion, the most serious. For example, I have been teaching in a college for 15 years, and suddenly now I have to do it as per the new education policy. There should be a professional training program. And most of us and most of the teachers, they are the product of tradition, still focus on till they. And please see, as you can see here in higher education, we have about 1.4 million teachers, and in school education, 3.5 million. So almost 5 million teachers at micro level will run the education sector of the country. But without their training, it will not be possible. This is my serious concern. So there is a need to focus on their professional development and change of their mindset, as they have a very important role to play in achieving the objectives of National Education Policy 2020. And I am recently appointed a member of the National Core Committee, which is working on teacher education in higher education. We already had maybe 2 meetings now, that in future, when we recruit teachers in higher education, some teacher education qualification should be there, just as we have for school education. Presently we have maybe MA, MSc, then PhD, then NET qualification, then PhD, all that. But all these mainly test domain knowledge. Pedagogy, the art of teaching, is never reflected, never tested. How you communicate, how you teach, what is your thought process, never tested. And I remember when I became lecturer, I was hardly 21 and started teaching in Delhi University, just as if I have come from MSc and started teaching. No training. We just taught the way we wanted. So this is something what is required. Because it is now said that once an individual's quality improves, institutions' quality will improve and India's quality will improve. And you know that in NEP also now, individuals' profile will also be seen, how they have improved themselves. And one more challenge which is there in our system, and that is, there is a crisis of creativity in Indian education system. I personally feel, I have worked very closely with Nobel laureates and other people and seen how the people think and work. This is a very big problem in our system. For example, there is a dearth of creative minds. No Indian scientist working in India has been able to get Nobel Prize after 1930. After C.V. Raman, 90 years have passed. Why is it so? There have been some people like Khurana, Chandrasekhar, etc. But then they were working abroad, non-resident Indians. Even in economics, Amartya Sen mostly worked abroad. And even Abhijit Banerjee is an American citizen. So why is it that for such a vast country, we are not able to produce? You know, I also teach, and many of you also teach. Whenever we teach, we are talking about the contributions of foreign people. Oh, he did this, is this law, Avogadro's law, this law. So we are merely the followers when we will become the leaders. And for that, you need creativity. And please remember, Nobel Prize is not a lifetime achievement award. To excel in research at that level, one needs, amongst others, perseverance and resilience. You know, we in India want immediate gains. Oh, I should get something big. Last year's chemistry Nobel Prize winner was 97-year-old. Then we need enormous amount of creativity and open-mindedness. This is something which is missing. Creativity is not there. And creativity cannot come in one day. And then willingness to collaborate. Everybody prefers to work in isolation. We need to build more bridges rather than walls. I just give you one example. India has the third largest scientific and technical manpower in the world. Even publication-wise, we are number 3 in the world, as you can see here, after China and United States. But recently, this report came that out of the 4,000 most cited researchers in the world, 4,000, only 10 are from India. That is 0.25%. So that shows that quality aspect is missing. These are the 10 people, including Professor Rao. So what I really mean is that there is something wrong in our education system, which policies will not change, which we as teachers can only change. And what is that fundamental flaw in our education system? Just watch this video, and this is an eye-opener for all of us.
For decades, people have been finding hundreds of flaws in the education system. No conceptual understanding, no creativity, children are stressed, and the list goes on. All these are symptoms, but what's the root cause to all this? What is the fundamental flaw in the education system? Let us play a rapid-fire game. You have 1 second to answer every question. Let's start. First question. A4? Okay, no more questions. Did you think apple first? 98% of people are most likely to think so. Because that was what we were told in our kindergarten. Imagine that this was done differently. Say we'd asked you for all the words starting with A. And, ace, April, apt. Different answers would have popped out of everyone's head. Do you see where the problem is? Before children start going to school, every child is unique. Every child thinks different. But the education system makes every child think the same. This is the fundamental flaw in the education system. Why did this start? During the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, the education system was designed to make children ready to work in factories. The factories did not require people to think, but to only work like robots. So, the education system stripped children of their freedom to think and destroyed their true potential. The same education system continues even today. Only the industries have changed. A study by NASA shows that 98% of children think different before they start going to school. As they go through this education system, at 25 years of age, only 2% think different, and 98% think the same. So how does the education system make every child the same? Let's go back to the apple example. Kindergarten lessons told us that A is for apple. We asked you for words that start with A. Our education system gave us the answers. We asked you a question. Answers make you the same. Questions make you different. Right from kindergarten, the education system keeps giving answers. Instead of asking children how plants make food, the science teacher gives you the definition of photosynthesis. Instead of describe the sun, that the sun is a ball of fire, solar system. Through the years in school, children lose the capability to think on their own, whether it is their choice of career or their relationship, or they become.
So, and please remember, without future human engineering, we have to encourage that. Although in this policy, to encourage research, they have created National Research Foundation. It is going to be an apex body for future of country. It will do the funding part and so many things. I think it's very good. It's something like National Science Foundation, which we had in United States. But funding is also okay. Everything is okay. But research basically depends. Who will generate that? That's a challenge. We also have not only dearth of creative minds, even the research persons wise, we are quite less. Per 1 lakh of population, India has just 15. China has 111 and United States has 800. This policy, national education policy, especially mentions that our research should. But again, everything starts. One thing, there are always some peaks of excellence in the. You go to the leading institutes, you have very bright people. But we should have it in the entire country. That is what there would always be some self-motivated people who this policy is transformed. Now government is realizing that assessment drives learning. The way you start as students, your students will start learning in that education. This is a very good quote. Here the same exam, please judge multiple skills of the students. And now, as I said, and 4-year degree would be with research. But suppose you do BSc chemistry, something like the nomenclature is yet to come. If it is done with 4 years, it means you have done it with research. Then your MSc chemistry will be only 1 year. But if you have done BSc chemistry, etc., with 3 years, then MSc will be 2 years, and 1 year would be there of research. So that is how the flexibility comes, multiple exit options come. Then, when a student leaves after first year, whatsoever credit he or she has earned, there will be an academic bank of credits. It will be like a savings account. You save your credits, and maybe later on you can again come and continue. But still one has to understand that if you are in the same university, it's okay. But is it okay that if I am from one university and the rest I want to do in another university, then some MOUs will have to be signed for inter-transfer of credits. So many things are there, but really the real crux would be how they are implemented. That is what I said. Pilot projects will be introduced in many cases. And ultimately the vision of the government is MIRUs, multidisciplinary education and research universities. The government feels in future we are going to have 3 types of higher education institutions. One will be research-intensive universities, which will focus on world-class research along with high-quality teaching across all disciplines. Second is teaching universities, which will be high-quality teaching universities across disciplines with significant commitment to research. And there will be autonomous degree granting colleges, They will be mainly doing high quality teaching across disciplines, but at UG level. This is what the vision is at present. So teaching quality has to be of very high quality in the sense not only of teaching but also of research. Then the government is also proposing national common test. Let's see how it works. Maybe this will be the only way for admission to universities in future. But some universities may say because of that concurrent list, autonomy of the universities may be attacked. They may say, so since it is a central government policy, so they may start with central universities and later on state universities could also join. So how the things work, it is to be seen. You know, this national common test is similar to SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Test. This is an exam which is in the United States. This is for universities and colleges in America. Something on similar lines. So, you know, you will have to see how the things change, but it's very ambitious policy. Multidisciplinary, then what subjects you can take, how the things will work. So then de-affiliation of colleges is another important aspect. All the colleges which are affiliated, that will be finished in 15 years. And you know, they will be given graded autonomy. And over a period of time, these affiliated colleges will be developed either into an autonomous degree granting college or a constituent college. And it will start with the top ranked colleges, which are very high in NIRF ranking. They will be starting with them. So those will be de-affiliated first. Either they will be the constituent college of the university or, as I said earlier, this autonomous degree granting colleges. So this is how the things will work. And you know, expenditure on education. This is very important. Public investment in the education sector is expected to reach 6% of the GDP at the earliest. That is, this policy hopes to achieve. India's GDP, as you can see here, is $2.88 trillion. Currently, India is spending about 3.1% of its GDP on education. You know, this is the world economy. And you can see United States has the share of 24.42% of world economy. India has 3.28%, which has 16.34%. So, and currently our expenditure on education is 3.1, but if it is increased to 6%, it's a big jump. But I must say earlier also it was planned at one time that it should be 6%, but it could not be achieved. You know, 6% doesn't mean on higher education. This will be higher education, vocational education, all of them taken together. Another important is that top ranking foreign universities can set up campus in India. This is a big thing. You know, many of our students every year, they go abroad to foreign universities. But if foreign universities are able to set up campus in India, I think it's a big. I know in Dubai, many universities have set up, so people they don't need to go to them. They have it in their own place. But for this, a bill will be required to be passed in the parliament. So at present also there are some, collaborative twinning arrangement. Twinning arrangement means joint degree arrangement. It's there already. But setting up its own campus, it needs I remember when I was in Mauritius as an executive director, IIT wanted to set up a campus in Mauritius, but then IIT Act and the National Education Policy 1986 did not permit. So all these permissions are required. And the reason is, one should also keep it in mind, foreign universities are not coming here for philanthropic purposes. They want to earn money. So what will be their financial model? What will be the fee, etc.? Of course, from our point of view, it will be a control over brain drain. then it may offer healthy competition with Indian universities. But then foreign universities, once they come, they have to align their courses with the needs of our students, their background. So big challenges are there. It's not so easy. And then, the regulatory mechanism is very important for any, for example, even in a college, how the entire academics are regulated. In a college itself, it plays a very important role. So in the country now, there will be one Higher Education Commission of India, that AICT, UGC, then National Council for Teacher Education, all will be ultimately merged into a single umbrella body, excluding medical and legal education. And one big thing which is mentioned in this policy is that public and private higher education institutions will be governed by the same set of norms for regulation, accreditation, and academic standards. And this Higher Education Commission, which will be set up, it will have 4 verticals. One for regulation, one for standard setting, one for funding, one for accreditation. So, looks good. Let's see. But I think in the country, the implementation of new education policy should start with setting up these things. Once these are set up, then things will start. And then one more thing which is coming in a very big way is technology. If you look at the education policy, it talks about technology in education in a very big way. It says that the relationship between technology and education at all levels is bidirectional. I mean, technology enhances the quality of education, and once the quality of education is enhanced, it helps in improving the technology. So they feed on each other. So that is what is going to happen. And it is a very important relationship which this policy also acknowledges. Technology is going to come in a very big way in education. An autonomous body like National Educational Technology Forum will be created. So who are the members? One doesn't know, but it will touch all aspects on the use of technology to enhance learning, assessment, planning, administration. Then virtual labs, etc. will also come. So for science students, still you have MOOCs, etc. But what about experimental work? It will focus on virtual lab. Virtual lab is something like this. You have a physical lab. This is connected through internet. How the interface works, and then to the remote users. So remote users can really have access to the physical lab. But the details have to be worked out. Please remember, technology is an enabler. It doesn't have the brain of its own, which can help in achieving the intention of the person who is using it. Makes our lives easier and more convenient, and helps us to do things more quickly and effectively. Look at our life.